Hey, hey, hey. What's up, guys? It's your boy Kilo Loco, and today we're going to be going over Cocoapods. Yeah, we're going to be sharing your framework. We're going to create your very own Cocopod. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? That's something, ain't it? Yeah, we're going to be creating our very own Cocopod, which I think is pretty cool. You can make your own Cocopod and then let people, you create your own framework, make it available through Cocoapods. It's super easy to install on other people's projects. It's awesome, man. All right, so the tools that we're going to be using: Xcode 9.1. Very important that you use 9.1 and not 9.0. There was a bug in 9.0, or at least on my machine, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to be using Swift 4 to create the framework. We're not going to be writing very much Swift, and we're going to be heavily up in that terminal right there. So the skill level I set to intermediate, and the reason that it's intermediate is because you got to be very familiar with terminal. You got to be able to change directories. You got to be able to list the files in there. I mean, that doesn't sound like crazy stuff, but we're going to be in the terminal essentially the whole time. So just, you should be familiar with it. Know how to use GitHub, because we're going to be using GitHub for the repo, and then just have some understanding of Swift when we're writing the project. There's not really much to download for this project. We're going to be going through everything step by step, but I will still make the source file available for you, just so that you guys have it. So, yeah. So you can get it from right here, and enroll into the YouTube course. It's completely free, and then you go to the video, and then you just download it. So enough of that talkity talk, more of that walkity walk. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off in our favorite browser. Safari is always your favorite browser. I don't care what you say. And what you want to do is you want to go to new repository. So we're just going to click on that bad boy right there. And you're going to call it whatever you want to call your framework, right? So I'm just going to call my Loco framework. And this is an amazingly Loco framework. Right? And then it'll be public. Initialize with the README, yeah, sure. Add a license, yeah, sure. I want this to be available for the entire world, so we're just going to say MIT, and we're going to create that repository like so. From here, what we want to do, we want to go to clone or download. You're going to have this little thing. Make sure it's HTTPS, or I mean, you could use SSH, but I'm using HTTPS. And I'm going to just copy that bad boy right there. From there, we're going to open up your terminal. And actually, let me put this on another screen since mine is transparent, which I like, but it may be hard for some of you guys to actually see what's going on. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make a directory where the file is going to live, where our framework is going to be created and live and all that stuff, where we have to clone from GitHub into that folder. So I think you guys already know where I'm going to put it. I'm going to change directory over to this desktop, and then you know where I'm going to go from there? KL Learning, baby, because that's where I learn you. Yeah. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to do Git Clone, and then you're going to just paste whatever your link was when you did the copy. You just press enter. It's going to be cloning that Loco framework. We're going to change directory into the Loco framework. And then what we're going to do is we're going to list all of them. And you're going to see that we have our files in there like so, as we would expect. So what we will do is we're going to open up Xcode, and we're going to say file new project like so, and we're going to do a Cocoa Touch framework. I have iOS selected. If this should work if you want to do Mac OS Cocoa framework, but I'm doing it on iOS framework. So we're going to do Cocoa Touch framework, and we do next like so, and I'm just going to call this the same exact thing. It's very well, I mean, you don't have to, but I would highly recommend that you keep all these names the same. It'll just make your life a whole lot easier. If you start having different names of the folders and all these things, it's gonna kind of create some chaos for you, and you probably don't want that. You probably don't want that. Okay? All right. So we're gonna just say Loco framework like so, and don't get crazy with the naming conventions, guys. This is how you see it whenever you import anything. Just keep it like that. Okay? Nothing crazy. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna save this. You know where? Oh, I think you already know where. I think you already know. We're gonna save that in that KL learning in the Loco frameworks, and we're gonna create that bad boy. We're gonna create it. Go create it. And what we have to do is we have to create a new file, and we'll create a Swift file, and this is just gonna be whatever service that we're gonna make, you know, for our framework, and I'm just gonna call it service. For right now. If you want to know how to create a framework from scratch, I have another video on that. Make sure you check that out. But we're just going to be blazing through this part right here, because I have a whole video dedicated to that. And we'll just say service. And it could be called whatever you want. Just anyway. Private init, because we don't want anybody to create an instance of our service class. And then we'll make sure that we say public static func, and we'll say do something, and then what it will do is it will return a string, and all we're gonna say is return did some stuff. Here you go, homeboy. Like so, right? So now we have essentially this is all our framework is going to consist of. Is going to have this one service class, and it's going to have a method that it says do something, and then it returns a string, and it's going to return this string right here. So yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to close it. And oh, actually, you probably shouldn't close it. What you want to do actually is you want to don't close it. You want to you just want to build it just to make sure that it builds succeed, right? Like I said, with the framework thing, you just want to. There's a whole entire video on how you do it properly, but yeah, just be careful that you build it. Make sure that it's not going to crash or anything like that. So let's go ahead and list everything that's in our folder right here, and as you can see, it built another folder for the actual the local framework. So what we'll do is we'll change directory into Loco framework, which is going to have our if we do ls-al, it's going to actually have our Xcode project in here, right? So what we want to do is we're going to say pod or well, I'm sorry, I went a little bit ahead of myself. Change directory back here, right? So now we're still in the Loco framework. We're going to just, print working directory just so you can see where I'm at. I'm in KL learning Loco framework. And if I do ls-al, you'll be able to see that we're back to where we were. And then this is where the actual Xcode file is. So what we want to do is first, we just want to push this up to GitHub. So what we'll do is we'll do git push origin master. And oh well, Kyle, you didn't check the status. If you notice the status, it's all red. Look at that. So you have to add and commit. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do git add, and we're gonna add everything in this folder, and then we're gonna do git commit with whatever message we want to add, and we're gonna just say finished our Loco framework. If you know how to spell or whatever. And then you do git push origin master, right? Like so. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our favorite browser, which is always Safari for everybody. And I don't care what you say. And now we can see that everything is up to date. Cool beans. So now if we just ls-al, once again, you see that the Loco framework, that's where our Xcode project is. We want to change directory into there. So we'll change directory into the Loco framework, right? Once again, we'll just do ls just -al just to make sure that we're in the right directory. We have our Xcode project right there. And now what we'll do is we'll do pod init. And that will create a pod file. So if we do ls-al, you can see there is a pod file in there. Look at that. Now, we also want to do pod spec create, and then we're gonna oh, my bad, I accidentally pressed enter. What I wanted to do pod spec create, and then you have to do whatever the repository name is. So what we'll do is we'll do Loco framework, or not the repository name, but the whatever you're gonna call it, dot pod spec. I named it wrong. We're gonna change that right now. I named it wrong, my bad. So let's go ahead and fix that, because Kyle made a mistake, stupid Kyle. And I mean, you learn a cool little command in the process. So we'll do move Loco framework dot pod spec, and we're going to change that name to Loco framework dot pod spec. Now if we do ls-al, we'll just have Loco framework dot pod spec, and that's what we want to open. So what we'll do is we'll say open Loco framework dot pod spec, and then you have to say what application you're going to open it with. I like to do all my stuff in Xcode. You might want to do it too. So you have to say -a for the application, and then you have to specify the application name, which is Xcode. So it's going to open up, and you'll notice, is this big enough for you guys? Medium? Yeah, it should be good. All right. So what you'll notice is that it has a bunch of comments. You see all these little pound signs? Those are all comments. Now, the pod spec file will actually tell you, and let's rename this because that's wrong. Kyle did something wrong. It'll actually tell you how to go about and create your pod spec file and how to do everything. It's all laid out for you actually already. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you delete all the comments and just keep your pod spec file clean. It wouldn't do anything if you didn't, but it's just a good rule of thumb to just clear it out and keep it all clean. So we're just going to start deleting comments. And now we're just going to start deleting it, and I'll walk you through all this stuff. If you want to read it, then you can go ahead and read it. It'll tell you like more in depth than what I'm going to tell you. It'll tell you the right way to do it. But yeah. Now, I noticed that it says 0.0.1, and I actually made a mistake. We were supposed to tag the version that we were going to put on our GitHub. So what we'll do is we'll just do git tag, and we'll just call it 1.0.0, and then we'll do git push -- tags, and we're gonna wait for it to push them tags. So now if we actually go back to our GitHub and we go over here to tags, oh well, we're gonna have to refresh it first before it'll work. Watch. If we go over here to tags, you'll see that it says 1.0.0. So just one little thing that you got to do. But yeah, other than that, we're still on track. Okay, so now s.name, and this is just like, so this s is going to represent the spec variable. It's like, so if you were to put, spec right here or whatever, all these would have to say spec. So just keep that in mind. So this is the s, and make sure you keep all that stuff the same. This is going to be the name of your framework, so make sure that it's spelled exactly the same as the actual the framework that you're trying to put as a Cocoapod. And the version, make sure that that's the same as the tag that you pushed up. We did 1.0.0. It's a good place to start off. A short description, yeah, sure, why not? So I'm gonna just say, this is such a Loco framework. Yeah, man. All right. So now the description. Now you could put in a description. You probably should, but you don't have to. You want the description to generally be a little bit longer than what the summary is. So this is some super Loco framework that was made by a crazy guy. Yeah. So whatever. And then for the home page, what you want to do is you want to specify where the person can find the actual framework. Like where does this live? So ours lives on GitHub, and that's where we want to advertise it. If you had it on your website and that's where you wanted people to go to like read all the documentation about it, then you can do that. So once again, we're going to go back over here. We're just going to copy this, and we're going to just say, okay, this is where you should go if you want to view the framework, and without the .git, just right here, and that will take them to our GitHub profile. So if you have any screenshots or anything, like if you want to have any images associated with your framework, then this is where you would put it. Make sure those images live online because it needs to reference it from somewhere, but we're not doing that. This is where you specify your license type. Now we set it as MIT, so if I just delete this example right here, then we should be good. Sometimes it will give you errors even if you set it like this, but we set it as MIT. You guys could set it as I think I think there's another one called like BHD or something like that. I don't know. I know there's one called Apache. Look into your licensing stuff if you want to be more crazy and creative with it, and you don't want it to be available to the world. But yeah, this is where you would specify it, and you could also keep it as, I don't know, there's like a lot of things that you could do with the licensing, but just to get up and running and make it available for everybody, we're just gonna say MIT. I don't want to spend too much time. If you want to have it stored like with the actual repo in a specific place, you can do it like this. It's just saying what type it is and then the file location, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep it as MIT just like that. So now it goes over who's the actual creator, which is going to be you, right? And the author. And we're just going to keep this format. You can either choose to just have your name, or you can have it as your name and then an email address that they can reach you at. So I'm gonna just say Kilo Loco, and I'll say RE Kyle Lee at gmail.com, right? Because that's the one that I use. If you have multiple authors, then you want to put them once again in this format. And then if you want to link your social account, then you can do it right here and they have an example as Twitter. So we're not going to do any of that. We're just trying to do the bare bones, make sure that we can get everything up and running and everything's working. Next, we have the platforms. So this part is kind of mandatory. Well, it is mandatory, but the way that we're going to do it, since we're using Swift, we actually have to specify a version of iOS that's higher than 8.0 because I don't think Swift runs on anything below 8. So what we'll do is we'll delete this one, and we're going to uncomment out this one. And, just to keep everything looking kind of pretty, we're going to do that. So for the platform, we want iOS. If you want it to have multiple platforms, then this is where it'll tell you how to do that. You just do the S dot, if you want to do iOS deployment target, that, OS X, that, and then so on and so forth. So it tells you how to do it. Like I said, the pod spec, it tells you how to go through it and make it, but we're not dealing with multiple, we're just dealing with iOS. And then remember what your target was when you created the project, when you created your when you created your framework. Now ours was using Swift 4, so we have to use iOS. Well, you don't have to use iOS 11, but yeah, we're gonna just specify iOS 11 because that's what it defaulted to when I created the framework. So yeah, so we're just gonna say iOS 11. From here, this is the source. This is the actual source of where they will be getting your project from. So it's the same. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to our favorite browser. And once again, we'll copy this. And this time it actually does need the Git at the end. Notice that it has the Git right here. So what we'll do is we'll just paste this in. And if you have the .git, because that's where Cocoapods is going to go out and download your file from. And then for the tag, remember that the tag is going to be the 1.0.0, like so. So that's how we do the source. And then from here, this is where the actual framework files live. So what it wants you to do is it actually wants you to put which folder or which specific files do you want to have be part of the framework. Now we're just going to keep the whole entire folder, and that will allow us to just use everything that was in the folder. If we had multiple files instead of just the service.swift file, we would have multiple files. But you know, we're just going to do the folder. It works fine just like this, and we'll just call it what was it called? Loco framework. And that's going to have our entire Xcode project in it. Now, if you wanted to exclude any files, then this is where you would specify which ones to exclude. But there's nothing in there that's super sensitive, so we'll just go ahead and delete that. And then this is like if you were working with like Objective-C files, you could specify which ones are the header files and things like that. But we're not working with that, so we don't need to worry about it. Now from here on, I don't think we need anything else. Everything else is kind of like extra. Now the resources, like let's say if you had like a image that was associated with your framework or something like that, then this is where you would specify where the file location is. And you know, if you had multiple, then you would you know, do it like, okay, resources like that. And yeah, we're not working with, you know, images and other resources, so we don't really need to use this, so we can skip over that. If you guys want to explore with it, then, you know, just go ahead and read this thing. It kind of tells you how to do it, but it's not too complicated to figure it out. From here, project linking, this is if you had any other libraries that you wanted to associate with it. Like if you were dealing with UI images, then you would want to, you know, include UI kit. So you know, specify like UI kit or something like that in there. But we're not working with any of that. And then project settings and other dependencies. This is like where you would say, oh, you know what, my framework works with this other framework. So this is where you would include and specify which framework you're working with and which specific version. So like if there was something called JSON kit, there probably is, I don't know, then that's what you would specify, and then what version that it's supposed to be working with. But we're not working with any other frameworks right now. We're just working with our own. So in the end, what your pod spec file should look like is something like this. Really small, you know, something really light, and essentially pretty straightforward and easy to read like this. So if we just do Command S to save it, we can go ahead and close it out. And from there, we want to just, you know, what I'll do is I'll clean this up. And I'm going to just say pwd print working directory, make sure that we're in the right space. I'm going to ls-al, make sure that we have our pod spec file visible right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to say pod spec lint. All right, so what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that your pod spec file was properly formatted. It has everything that's specified, and it's going to make sure that everything is working properly. So as you can see here, we ran into a error because by default it's working with Swift 3. I don't know why. So what you actually have to do is you have to create a .swift version. It tells you right here, which is awesome. It tells you exactly what you need to do. So what we need to do is we need to touch this file, or touch is to create. So we'll say touch, or if you want to see, or if we look up here, we can see like what files are in here. If we do touch dot swift dash version, if we touch that and then we do ls-al, you'll now see a .swift version file, right? So instead of having to open it, what you could do is you could just do this command right here. If we just go ahead and copy that and we paste it right here, what Echo does when you're working with a file is it puts in whatever text is right here in between those quotes. So what this is going to do is it's going to put in just 4.0 inside of our .swift version file. So if we do enter, and then if we cat is, it lets you view a file. So you just do cat.swift version, and it'll let you see what's in there, and it's just 4.0. So that's all we needed to do. So now if we do pod spec lint again, based off of what it told us, there was only one error. It should be good, but we ran into another problem. Sources file pattern did not match any file patterns. So what we have to do is we have to go back to our sources file, and we want to open that up and open our Loco framework .pod spec. Whoa, what did I do? Open, -A and then Xcode. Remember, you have to specify what you're opening it with. And oh yeah, I did mess this up. So what we want to do is we want to say, yeah, we want the Loco framework, which is the Xcode folder that, or the Xcode folder that holds all the files in it. And then we want to say we want essentially anything that's in that, and we want anything that's in there below that. So if we do save, I believe it should work. So let's go ahead and do pod spec lint. And as we see, we passed validation. Now, I ran into a problem yesterday when I was working on this, on trying to get it up and running. Now, you may not, a couple of things may happen. You may run into an error where you get this thing. I actually have a screenshot of it. All right. So this was the error I was getting yesterday. Now it's saying I was getting a warning, which for the license file, because I didn't create my repo on GitHub with a license. So that was giving me an error. But you can get rid of that error if you add a license file to your repo. So that's what that one is. And then I had this Xcode build error. Now I was going crazy because I was like, man, this is like the first time that I was doing this, and I didn't understand, was I doing something wrong in the pod spec file? But it turns out that to really fix this Xcode build error, I just had to upgrade from 9.0 to 9.1. Now, I don't know why that worked. Maybe there really was a bug with Xcode 9.0, but upgrading just seemed to work. So try that out. There's a couple of other solutions online. You just have to check Google. But there are a couple of things that can go wrong along this process, and this was one of them. But you know, I won't be able to tell you if you say, oh well, I got this error. Like, you know, this, I'm showing you each step, so you just kind of have to follow each of those steps. But the Xcode build error, it was because I didn't have the latest for whatever reason. But yeah. Anyway, so now that our pod spec has passed validation, what we want to do is we want to test this thing out and make sure that it's working, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to close that, and we're going to create a brand new project. So let's go ahead and create that brand new project, and we're going to do a single view application. And we'll just testen dat frizzy. Testen that frizzy. And I'll just keep this. Yeah, if we actually do it in here, what we can do is when we're finished, we can use this kind of like an example project. So if we keep it inside the Loco framework, which also holds the the license and the README and the actual framework, then we can actually push that up to GitHub, and it'll be like our example project. Okay, so what we want to do is first, Kyle, I want to make sure you ain't cheating, mother sucker. So what we want to do is we want to just say Loco, import Loco framework, right? And if I do build, it should fail because there is no Loco framework associated with it, right? Right, Kyle. Cool. So you ain't lying to us. That's good. You ain't a lie. All right. So now that we have it created, what we want to do is we'll close Xcode and make sure that we're in the right directory. So let's just first let's clean all this stuff up, and we'll do pwd print working directory. All right, we're in the wrong directory, so what we're going to do is we're going to change directories, go back, and we're going to do ls-al, and we can see we have that tizestin.frizzy, and that's where we want to go into. So we'll change directory into tizestin.frizzy, and what we want to do is we want to say pod init, because now we want to use it like a real Cocoapod, right? So we'll do pod init, and we'll open the pod file that was created. Come on, Kyle. And just like any other framework or any other Cocoapod that we would do, we'd just say pod, and we'll just pass in our Loco framework right? And then we'll do comma, and then you specify the path. Oh, and you have to actually specify colon. So colon path, and then you have to do equals, greater than sign, and then you specify the location of the pod, the framework that you're trying to do the pod from. So ours is located one directory above this actual file that we're currently in. So if we do change directory, or actually if we just do ls-al of this, and then we say Loco framework, that's where the actual Loco framework and the Loco framework pod spec live. So that's where we're actually trying to get to. So we have to say /Loco framework, and that's where we want to put it. And we'll paste that in there, and like so. And we don't want 4 dots. I don't know what the heck that was, Kyle. Now we can close it. And since we're still in testing that frizzy, what we can do is we can do pod install. And as you can see, installing Loco framework 1.1. It's all green, looking sexy and good, and oh yeah. So now what we can do is we can open our Tizestin.frizzy, and we want to open the XC workspace, right? And now what we want to do is we want to make sure that this bad boy is going to work when we actually try to use it. So now we go back to our view controller. We still have that Loco framework. And if we build this time, we should get a success, because now we do actually have a Loco framework to be referencing like a bouse, like a souse bouse. So remember that our service, our method just returns a string, and what we're going to do is we're just going to print that string. So we'll just say let my string equals service dot do something, and then all we're going to do is we're going to print my string. So now when we run this bad boy, if everything's working, which I mean, so far everything's checking out. I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't work, right? So if everything's working, when the simulator finally decides to launch, when the simulator decides to launch, it should just print out this string after the view did load. So let's wait for that. All right, here we go. Here we go, here we go. And it's gonna print my string. It's gonna print it, it's gonna print it, it's gonna print it. Did some stuff. Here you go, homeboy. Yeah. All right. So now we know that our framework is working. We can go ahead and close this bad boy down. We stop it. We stop it. We stop it. Good. All right. So now that we know that everything's working, what we're going to do is we're going to first we want to change directories back to the local framework directory that holds all this stuff. Make sure that we're in the right one. It has our local framework and our tzestin.frizzy. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that everything is just saved up to GitHub. So git add dot, and then we're going to have git commit dash message, and then we're just going to say added example, or whatever you want to say, right? And we'll just git push origin master. And are we good? Are we good? Oh, we're good. All right, so now everything's up in GitHub. So let's go ahead and clean this up with the Command K. And all we have to do now is we have to say, let's list all of our files. And what we want to do is we want to go back into our local framework that actually has the pod spec file in it. And we're going to change directory, Loco framework. And what we're going to do is we're going to ls-al, make sure that we're in the right directory once again, because I want to just show you guys everything. What we're going to do is we're going to do pod trunk me, and this is going to do, it's going to list what sessions that you currently have open. Now the first time that you do this, you won't have any sessions, right? So what you actually have to do is you have to set up a session, and I don't know that command off the top of my head, but what you want to do is you want to do pod trunk session. I forgot how to do it. You have to look it up. So we're gonna just do that. Register. That's what you have to do. You have to register. So this is what you have to do, and it's over here on the Cocoapod setting up with trunk. So if you go to this link, getting set up with trunk.html, it'll tell you everything that you need to know about Cocoapod's trunk. But essentially what you would do is you need to do this command right here. So we'll just go ahead and copy this, and I'll put this link in the description so that you guys can have it. So if we copy that and we go back over to our terminal, and let's hide this because this might bother some of you guys. Window, minimize. Okay, so now what we do is we'll just paste it in there, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna just change stuff where it needs to be. So as you can see right here, pod trunk register, right? That's normal. Keep that the same. Over here, what you want to do is you want to change your email address to whatever the email address is. I'll just do a different one, at hotmail.com. This is like my old one. If you want to send me mail there, go for it. I don't check it. And then you want to specify your name in quotes, and I'll just say Kilo Loco. And then you want to make sure that you do dash dash. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's dash dash dot description. Or actually, I should probably make it smaller so that it goes to the next line easier for you guys to see. Dash dash description. And it's not, you don't do enter right here. It's just going to the next line just because it's too long to fit in this window. So dash dash description is equal to whatever you're running on. So I'm running on a MacBook Pro, so I'll just say MacBook. Oh, Kyle, what the heck are you doing? Okay, so we have to say MacBook pro, right? And then you do enter. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask you to verify that this is like a real email address. So you have to go over to your email address. So I'll go to hotmail.com, and then you actually have to verify that that you gave them a real email address and that you can be reached at that email address. So no reply Cocoapods. Man, I haven't been in here in a while. Okay, so confirm your registration. What it'll do is please confirm your registration by going to this link. So we're just gonna go ahead and copy this, and we're gonna paste it up here. And what it'll do is it'll automatically confirm it. See, Ace, you're set up, bam, ready to go. So now it tells you what to do next: pod, trunk, push, and then whatever your library is called. So now what we do is we do pod, trunk, push, and then we want to do Loco framework. Oh, my bad, not the framework, just pod, trunk, push. That's all you have to do, pod, trunk, push. And I think it finds it for you because we're in the current directory, so it just finds it for you. So now it's updating spec repo, and it's actually pushing your stuff up to Cocoapods. So now that it can be, it's once again checking your pod spec file, making sure that everything looks good, which we already did the lint, and we know that it looks good. So now we're pushing it, and once it gets pushed up there, we're gonna get a little celebration text, which is kind of cool, and it will be available for everybody. All right, so now it is up there. Look at that. Look at the little congratulations, like all sexy like, and then you got the little rocket ship, got that little thing right there, and got that little thing right there, and like tell your friends. Also, that's cool. So we're gonna copy this, and as you're gonna see, it says this, but remember that we specified that the home page is gonna be our GitHub. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna take us right back. It's gonna redirect to our GitHub. So now we have that, and this is our Loco framework. So let's make sure that everything checks out and it's available everywhere. So now what we do is we go to Xcode. Once again, we create a brand new project, and we'll just call this one, single view application, just so that we can test it. And we'll just call this some trash, because we're gonna throw it away and everything afterwards. So we don't want to create it here. What we want to do is we'll just we'll put it right back in the KL learning folder, and we'll create a new one. And what we're gonna do is once we created it, we have to once again go back to our terminal. We'll clear all this. We're gonna change directory from our desktop to KL learning to some trash. And then what we have to do is remember, just like any other project, like if you were going to do Alamo Fire, pod init, open pod file, just say pod, and then you say whatever your framework name is, Loco framework, just like that. And it's going to go out into the internet. It's going to go find that bad boy. We save it. We close it. We say pod, hold on, you got to click on it, pod install, if you know how to spell it, and then it's going to go out, install this bad boy. Oh, look at that. Ooh, that's sexy. So now what we have to do is open some trash.xc workspace, and now if everything went fine and dandy, which we already know it did, what we'll do is we'll just do that same exact test. So what we're going to do is we're going to import Loco framework. And remember that you're probably going to get like this little red error that's about to pop up right here because Xcode's a bully. See, I already know that you a bully, Xcode. Can't fool me. I'm too smart. See, got that success. So what we'll do is we'll say let some string equals my service dot do something, and then we're just gonna print some string. All right, so now I'm just gonna do it to SE because that's a simulator that we already have currently up and running. So let's bring this little bad boy out. Little bad boy. And it's going to open up. It's gonna open up. And bam, did some stuff. Here you go, homeboy. And that is how it's done. It's a long video, guys, I know, but I wanted to be thorough. Didn't want to rush it. I wanted to make sure that you guys had everything that you needed to know. I try to explain where I ran into errors. I try to, be as detailed as possible without, rambling on about stuff that we're not even going to cover in here. But yeah, so that's how you create a Cocoapod. You get your frameworks up, start making frameworks, start making Cocoapods, start sharing your code with the world. Help your other dev buddies out. All right. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. I don't post that often, and it's mostly personal stuff. And then go ahead and check out kiloloco.com. It's gonna be getting a major facelift soon, and I'm gonna probably have an app out very soon too. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, make sure you keep coding passionately, and I'll see you next time. Later.